Hey guys, welcome back. This time we will take a look at diplomacy. In the diplomacy screen there is a lot of things you can do. The one you'll probably use the most is trade. So you have this country list right here, and you can use these buttons to filter the list. You can also use the resource icon here to change the order in which they are displayed by the amount of surplus resources they have. So if you need rare resources, all you have to do is click the Rare Resources button so that the countries with the most rare resources are on top. Select the country you wish to trade with, offer a trade agreement, set the slider to how much you want, and click Accept. Note that it gives you the chance of success here. As long as it says likely or very likely, you can give it a shot, but impossible will never work, so you don't even have to try. Now, if you want to sell a resource, usually supplies, it works the same way. Order the list by supply so that the ones with the least supplies are at the top. Offer a trade agreement, and drag the slider to the sell side. You can see here that when we pass from about 38 to 40, the success chance for the trade suddenly changes from very likely to impossible. The reason for that is that they want to trade because they need supplies, but they only make 7.24 money each day, as we can see here. So as soon as the trade we want to make requires them to pay more than their income, they can't accept anymore. If you don't want to deal with trade, you can select Automate Trade down here. The AI will take over your trade agreements and try to trade so that your resources are balanced. Right below that we have our country's available decisions. These are special actions you can execute once certain conditions are met. As usual, you can hover over the question mark to see the conditions. So here we can see that the Anschluss of Austria decision requires several things to be true. Austria needs to be at peace, it needs to be a member of a faction, either the NSDAP needs 40 popularity or organization, or Austria needs to have a political crisis. And then finally, either the reoccupation of Rhineland flag must be active, which just means that we have to activate the decision below, or it must be at least March 1938. A condition that is met will have a green asterisk to its left instead of a red one. Once all the conditions are met, you can activate the decision by clicking this checkmark button. Hovering over it will show you the exact effects of doing so. So let's check out these stats next. We got current relations, which go from -200 to 200 and indicate how much our countries like each other. With higher relations, you're more likely to get them to agree to your offers, and they are less likely to declare war on you and such. Threat is a measure of how much one country feels threatened by the actions of another. So the higher their threat to us is, the easier it is to justify aggressive actions against them. There's a lot of factors that influence threat. Pretty much everything that could be seen as preparing for war will increase your threat to nearby countries, and of course attacking a country will also increase threat to countries that are close by. Neutrality, on the other hand, is pretty much the opposite. The higher your neutrality is, the more your people just want to stay out of the conflicts of others. Neutrality can't be decreased directly, but it slowly decreases on its own as the threat of nearby countries to you increases. You can speed this up by sending spies to neighboring countries to increase their threat, but the details will have to wait until we get to the intelligence section of this tutorial. Then we have our neutrality, and with another country selected, this shows both your neutrality in red and the required neutrality to declare war. So in this case we have 60% neutrality, and we need to get to 25% if we wish to declare war on Austria. Of course, increasing threat will make it so you can declare war sooner. Finally, we have highest threat, which shows us the country with the highest threat to them. In this case, no one has any threat to them because the game only just started, so we are listed here with 0 threat, but it doesn't really mean anything at this point. Below all those things we have info, which shows you important things about that country. Austria has nothing special to it right now, but selecting Belgium, for example, shows us that their independence is guaranteed by the United Kingdom. That means that if we declare war on Belgium, the United Kingdom has the right to intervene and declare war on us. Alliances and such would also be displayed here. We can also get a list of their relations with other countries. And active war goals, which gives you a list of both war goals that the selected country has active against others, as well as all war goals that are active against the selected country. War goals are basically reasons you go to war and determine what will happen if you win. For example, we can see here that Germany is trying to conquer several countries right now, like Belgium and Poland. And it has the Fall of France war goal active, which is a special war goal just for Germany against France. Meanwhile, Japan is trying to puppet nationalist China, so if they win their war, nationalist China won't be conquered by them, but instead it will become a puppet, which means that any surplus resources China gets will go on to Japan, and they basically act like an ally. Now, because Japan is part of the Axis, our faction, we get some new diplomatic options here. Call to arms will ask them to join our wars. Expeditionary force lets you send them units to help them out. You can also share technology with them, but only in theoretical fields. What that means is that the technology you share will just make it easier for them to research new technology in that field. So if we share infantry theory with them, they can then research new infantry weapons and such at a faster pace. If they happen not to research infantry tech, it's wasted, so the usefulness is a bit hard to judge. Also keep in mind that this not only costs 1 diplomatic point, which is the resource up here, but also costs 1 leadership, which is quite a big deal. Returning to our more peaceful time here, let's go through the rest of the diplomatic actions. We could offer a non-aggression pact, proclaim a guarantee, which guarantees their independence as we saw with the United Kingdom and Belgium earlier. We can ask for and give them transit rights, so units are allowed to move through the respective territories. We can invite them to our faction, which is unavailable right now because the difference between their neutrality and the highest threat against them is too high. So either we need their neutrality to get lower, or someone to get higher threat against them, so that they feel the need to join a faction to stay safe. You can also enforce a trade embargo against them, so that they can't trade with you anymore. That will also increase your threat to them and other nearby countries. But to do that, we would need lower neutrality, or someone with higher threat against us. Next we have production licenses, where you can ask them to give you a license to produce units they have the technology for, but we don't. So if they have some exceptional tank technology, you can ask them to give you a license, so you can then produce those tanks without actually having the technology yourself. This is useful for smaller countries that can't research nearly as much as the bigger ones. It's also a limited production run, and you have to decide immediately how many you want to build. And I'll go into the details of what serial and parallel means in the production tutorial. We can also ask them to allow us to accumulate a debt when trading with them. Normally, when you have a trade agreement and run out of money, it will be cancelled immediately. If they allow you to go into debt, they will keep sending you the resources, but you don't have to pay for them immediately. You might be able to get a faction member or puppet to agree to this, but I've never really used it. I suppose it would be useful if you could get someone to say yes. Next we can influence them, which makes them align themselves with our faction. So if you're playing a faction leader like Germany and there's someone you want to invite to your faction, then make sure to influence them as early as possible so that you can invite them sooner. The country's alignments are displayed in this triangle here, and each corner represents a faction. Filtering countries will also filter the countries there. Hovering over a country will show you which faction they are currently aligning themselves to. So we can see that Austria is drifting towards the Axis and is almost completely in the lower right corner, which is the maximum. Well, France is already a member of the Allies and so it is stuck in the Allied corner and you can't influence them anymore. Selecting a country will also show you who is influencing them at the moment in this box. So if we pick Japan here and start influencing them because we want them to join the Axis ASAP, then Germany will appear in the influence list. Note that influencing a nation is an ongoing process, and as long as you're influencing someone, you will constantly pay diplomatic points. 1 point per day per country you're influencing, to be exact. So choose wisely. Some countries will drift towards your faction on their own, and you don't need to influence them unless you want to speed things up. Hungary, for example, is already drifting towards the Axis because other Axis members are close to them, and we have a similar ideology. So finally up here we have the 3 factions, all their members, and a bar for each faction displaying their current victory points. Victory points are spread throughout the different provinces and marks them as important. Using the VP map mode, you can see where they are and how many victory points they are worth. Taking high victory points provinces is more beneficial in war than taking just any random province. These bars could be seen as the total strength of the alliance, but take it with a grain of salt. It doesn't really represent military strength or anything. If you now feel this is all too much and you just want to concentrate on the other stuff, you can set the whole thing to AI control up here. The AI does a decent job, but of course it doesn't know your strategy, so what the AI does will sometimes not line up with what you have planned. In the end though, it's up to you and how you have the most fun playing. Try it out if you like. So, see you next time when we tackle production, possibly the most important field of them all.